And welcome back to All Over the Map. Thanks for tuning in. On today's episode, we've got news of the day for the 11th of February, 2022. This is a game that we have created that provides you the news of 5 news events of the day. And we do this as a game, a GeoGuessr game, to bring you some interesting stories from around the world. We'll do this as a no time limit moving allowed challenge, so you can play along with this game. The play along link is in the description below, and let's get right into the news events of the day for the 11th of February 2021. That is a Friday. So we've got here a hospital, as noted here. I don't know Finnish yet, but we do have parking, so you do park here, and this is a hospital. So what's the story here? And why are we looking at a hospital in Finland? Well, the story is there is a rise in Finland's birth rate, not just due to COVID. So changes in values and attitude are likely to have played a part in Finland's newly rising birth rate, which is interesting. It says here, unlike many other countries, the birth rate began to rise in Finland during the coronavirus pandemic. While there seems to be no unequivocal reason for this trend, researchers are now looking for answers in both the impact of the pandemic and changing values and attitudes. The birth rate fell steadily almost for a decade, so that's interesting. And then at the end of 2019, the birth rate began to rise slowly, and especially in 2021, so many children were born that public discourse once again was using the phrase baby boom. So the interesting thing about this is that I could imagine being locked down could give rise to this sort of stuff. But in any case, it's an interesting trend to see, especially in Finland. And the researchers at the Finnish Institute in Health and Welfare say that unlike in many other wealthier countries, the rate has increased. So will this continue? Who knows? It is an interesting story, I thought, especially as it pertains to Finland coming off of historic lows in the 2010s. But let's get and take a look at this. Again, some of these news events, the location is the country. So I'm going to go to a hospital in this game in the Helsinki area or region, because I think Helsinki was one of the higher areas with where there are higher birth rates. So I picked one of the largest hospitals in Helsinki. So we're going to go look for this. And I don't know what's going on in Helsinki, but that is definitely an area that's got a lot of births over the last year. And I think we're here, just north of the city, down the street from the Helsinki Olympiastadion. And I think we're here, right around here someplace. The main entrance, I believe, to this hospital, but correct me if I'm wrong. 5,000 points, 10 yards. So, yeah, an interesting article. Again, like I said, the link to the actual article is in the description below. And if anything with this channel, if you've got an interesting news article, crazy story that you read or saw and you want to share with this All Over the Map community, please either comment down below or send me an email at alloverthemap23@gmail.com. All right, off to the second news event of the day, and we've got a cave, grotto cave, an interesting look there, overlooking the French, I guess, mountainous countryside, so to speak. And what we have interesting here is that a tiny tooth unearthed from that cave is upending what we know about early humans. So this is an interesting article. Won't go through it in too great of a detail, but the excavation of Grotte Mandrin in France has revealed that early modern humans lived there some 54,000 years ago, which means that's about 10,000 years earlier than archaeologists had previously thought. And I thought this was an interesting article, something that you don't normally see in the news on a day-to-day basis. But this actually was discovered in southern France with stone tools, which was interesting, and a tooth. Well, that's pretty cool. Previously, the arrival of early humans in Europe was dated back to between 43,000 and 45,000 years ago, according to the remains found in Italy and Bulgaria, not long before the last surviving Neanderthal remains dating back to 40 to 42,000 years ago were found. So, interesting story. This cave here is right here. Unfortunately, in this game, you could not, there was no, I guess, photosphere that was in the cave. And I thought this was a very beautiful scene overlooking southern France. So, yeah, so we learned that humans were in Europe earlier than previously thought. And I think this was just north of Grenoble. And Mandarin, I think we were, let's see, is it here? Yeah, Grotto, Mandarin Grotto. I think we were about there. Interesting, Chez les Pères Gras. Fine dining up on this hill. But yeah, if you look at this, folks, I don't know if you've been to Grenoble or this area of France, but man, it's beautiful, beautiful part of the world. I would imagine in the summer with the trees and the leaves and stuff like that, it would be that much more beautiful. But nonetheless, yeah, just an interesting part of the world. 18 yards, 5,000 points. Off to the next news article or news event or interesting story, because I should say it's news of the day. This one's more news of the time, and we're off to the Great Alaska Highway and what was connecting Alaska to the rest of the world going that way. Actually, looks like another Google car down here. Actually, it's funny enough. So let's take a look at this. This is a more in-depth article by BBC. So again, the link to this article is in the description below. But a very interesting, long, I guess, expose, whatever you want to call it, on the subarctic road to prevent invasion. The Alaska Highway will mark its 80th anniversary of the start of the construction this coming March. And it's considered one of the most scenic highways in Canada. The 1,387-mile highway attracts more than 300,000 road trippers around the world, beginning in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and winding northwesterly 613 miles through British Columbia into the Yukon, and then another 577 miles to the U.S. border. The road passes from the Rocky Mountains to subarctic alpine tundra. Yeah, this is just if you have the chance, I included this in here because it's the 80th, I guess, anniversary, so to speak, of this. But yeah, I have not here. This is one of my things to do on the bucket list. Maybe I'll do a road trip challenge or something with our family and doing this. I don't know what it is, but that is on the, I guess, long-term list to do because the beauty is just amazing up here. So the stunning $138 million feat of engineering is simply called the Alaska Highway today. Its initial military purpose began to fade soon after World War II in 1948. So that's pretty interesting. And you can, I don't want to read this article for you, but I want you to go through it. A lot of interesting, I guess, tidbits in this. The Fort Nelson Heritage Museum, talking about the Canadian Army. Yeah, this is just, the landscape is just awesome. But a very good article if you're up for reading this sort of thing. It was the biggest engineering project undertaken since the Panama Canal at the time, so that was pretty cool as well. But boreal forest, craggy rocks, the jade lakes of the Yukon. I just, it's an interesting article. Again, I don't want to read it because that's the point of this. I want to make sure that give just some overview about it, talk about it, play the game in GeoGuessr, but it's something that when you get to these longer articles that it's important to read this one by Diane Selkirk. So read that. It's a pretty interesting read. And we're going to get off to look at the end of this, which is actually the end of this Alaska Highway. Not sure what that is here, but a little museum, visitor information. And we're at Delta Junction, Alaska. So Delta Junction, Alaska. I'm going to click down here just to see if there's any signs. I did not even... Yeah, so this is... You're at the northern end of the Alaska Highway. Let's see if there's a sign up here on mileage. And there is, looks like, another Google car ahead of this, which is always interesting. No, it's just a sign of mileage. It doesn't say anything about the Alaska Highway or anything like that. But here's a clue. Fairbanks is to the northwest of here. And we're going to look at Delta Junction, Alaska, which is up here. I think we were just at this. The Alaska Highway comes into the another road, I guess. I think we were about there. If you look at the highway, it comes, this is and this is the Yukon through Beaver Creek down this way. So yeah, so there it is, the Alaska Highway. An interesting feat, especially on the tundra at that point in time in the 1940s, which was a pretty cool deal. So 5,000 points there, and we get off to the fourth article, and we've got the headquarters of SpaceX. SpaceX. Yep, SpaceX. Well, why are we here at SpaceX? This is Hawthorne, California. Well, NASA is raising concerns that SpaceX satellite deployment could hamper its space missions. So NASA's raised some concerns on their plan to deploy about 30,000 satellites for its Starlink, Elon Musk, that is. His SpaceX has received authorization for about 12,000 satellites to offer broadband internet and has requested authorization for a second-generation constellation of 30,000 satellites high above the sky around the world. And I don't know if you've ever seen this. Comment down below. But I've seen the satellites fly over where I'm located a few times, namely last summer when, at least in this part of the world, we're out and about outside in the evening, taking walks. It's warm. We look up and you see these string of lights moving at a rapid pace. And if you're not used to it, I know that people are like, whoa, there's UFOs, or call them to police stations. But I think most people know what it is now. But the goal of this is to bring broadband internet to a lot of remote places. But 30,000 satellites is crazy, which is insane to think about. NASA noted that there are currently 25,000 total objects tracked on orbit, or about 6,100 below 600 kilometers. So this would double more than the number of tracked objects in orbit and increase the number of objects below 600 kilometers over fivefold. So it's just a massive increase of stuff in the sky. The other thing, if you ever have the time and you're out and about it in the night and you look up into the sky, you can often see satellites go around. The fast movement, you have to look closely, but look like little tiny stars. You can often see it, especially when the sun's about to set. So that's just, and it's not a news thing, but it's something that's interesting that my kids have discovered during lockdown or during coronavirus when we were going for walks in the evening, and they look up and see, hey, that's a plane. And I'm like, that is not a plane. That is way up there, and it's a satellite. So, it's always fascinating to me, this sort of thing. However, you don't want it to, at least my opinion is, I don't want this to take up the sky where all these lights are moving around and, kind of voids out that constellation, the seeking of the stars that you want to see. Having said that, I know that there are people in remote areas that watch this video, and it might be Starlink that allows them to do that. So let's take a look at where SpaceX, Elon Musk's headquarters is at this point with SpaceX. I know they're all over the United States, but let's look at Hawthorne, California, which is right outside of Los Angeles. And Torrance, Compton, and Hawthorne. There we are, the 105. And I think there it is. SpaceX is right there. I think we're about here on Crenshaw and Compton. Reminds me of the days of Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, if you're familiar with that. I don't say I grew up with that music, but it certainly was around when I was a kid on Crenshaw and Compton. Well, where we get off to the next one, right down the street. And speaking of Snoop Dogg, as this leads into the next one, Snoop Dogg will be performing at the, I believe, halftime of the Super Bowl this Sunday. And yeah, this says our house, your house, Rams house. Well, the last news event article of the day, probably for the weekend, Super Bowl Sunday. It's a big event in the United States, kind of around the world. I know that there are people in England and stuff that will watch this or stay up to watch it. So not as big as the World Cup, obviously, but pretty big from a sporting event standpoint. You got the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Los Angeles Rams. And also to note, this is the second year in a row that the home or the Super Bowl is being hosted by the team that's actually playing in it. Last year that happened, I think, for the first time. Tampa with Tom Brady, they won the Super Bowl. Will that happen again? Who remains to be seen. I will go out on a limb. I will say the Cincinnati Bengals will win. I think they'll beat the Los Angeles Rams. That's just my pick. I might go for a score of, let's say, 24-21. I think that's going to be the score, 24-21, Cincinnati Bengals. And yeah, this is the SoFi Stadium. So a couple things I want to bring up to this about, first is it could be the hottest on record, the hottest Super Bowl being played. Not the hottest game, I don't believe. I think they refer to the hottest Super Bowl because typically this time of year in the United States, even if you're in California, it's in the 60s, which is about 15 to 20, anyway, anywhere between 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. This weekend, it'll be approaching 90, which is about 32 degrees Celsius. So record highs for California, but not, I know it's record highs, but not something that you wouldn't see before. But nonetheless, that's one. The other article that I'll link below is that the average ticket price is $8,869, the highest average resale value ever for a Super Bowl, which it's crazy. It's crazy to think about that you're going to spend $8,869 for a ball game. That to me is crazy. Interesting little thing here by Darren Ravel on Twitter. 27% of the buyers are from the host California and 11% for the Bengals home of Ohio, which is halfway across the country. For those, let's take a look at this. Let's go into this now and take a look and plonk this down where SoFi Stadium is. And I'll make a point about where Cincinnati is. So here's Los Angeles. We're up the street from SpaceX, down the street also from LAX, which is the airport here, the international airport if you fly into Los Angeles. But Inglewood is up to no good, as they say in one of the songs. I'm not sure what song that is. But here's the SoFi Stadium. We'll click on that. And that's where the Super Bowl is being hosted. And if you will look for perspective, folks, that are not from the United States, Cincinnati is here. I'm not sure the exact distance, but you'd have to go probably on this highway here, through Oklahoma, through Albuquerque, just to drive. Flying, probably a 4-hour flight. 4-hour flight. Driving could take you probably 3 days to drive. If you're driving about 12 hours a day, something to that effect. So the fact that there is 11% of the, which 11% of the buyers are from Ohio, meaning it's probably 10 to, I would say 10,000. I would guess probably 10,000 fans from Ohio, if not more. You have to understand, too, the Super Bowl is one where there's a lot of corporate sponsors, big wigs, especially being in California or Hollywood, probably a lot of stars, a lot of actors and actresses. That obviously probably ramps up the price as well, but it'll be interesting to see how many Bengals fans. But again, I'll go 24-21 to the Bengals. That wraps up news for the day. Let's see what I did here. Let's see if I got it. Did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? Inglewood's up to no good. And we got a perfect score on this one. 25,000 points. News of the day. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button, smash the subscribe button, and share this with your friends. Want to grow this channel. Want to continue to grow. Thanks to each and everyone that continued to tune in. We might not get to news of the day this weekend, or maybe I'll do it maybe a Sunday. I'll just have to remain to be seen if I can get it done on the weekends. It's just tougher to do it with kids' sports and all the stuff going on with family stuff. With that said, hopefully you enjoyed it. Till next time, cheers.